Wide receivers, 2025 fantasy football tiers. If you don't know me, you should listen because I really know what I'm talking about. This is all you need to prepare for your draft. Wide receivers, super interesting this year. My baseline strategy in almost every season for the last decade is get as many quality pass catchers as you can early and often and figure out the rest later. And this year presents a nice opportunity for that strategy because we have an interesting break here. And like in tiers 1, 2, and 3, and we'll get into the players in a minute. I'm going to go quickly, so try to keep up. You have the can't miss elite wide receiver one overall upside, like just monsters at the position. And there's right in front of me here, there's 9 of those guys right off the bat. Then from tiers 4 through, let's say, 8, there's a lot of names that I like, a lot of quality. So if you're going pass catcher heavy in this draft in the first 8 rounds, 10 rounds, you can put together a core of 6 super studs that have a chance of finishing in the top 20. And that's what I like to do is win the flex position in PPR leagues with wide receivers that you can grab in the 6th, 7th, 8th round. Anyway, let's get a little more specific here. I'm not going to talk about every player because there's a lot of receivers out there, but you'll see the tiers, and then we'll talk about some guys. Tier 1, I think, is the same for almost everywhere I've seen. Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, in some order. It seems that Chase is going first in basically every draft this year. You can argue, I don't think Chase is that clearly separated from CeeDee Lamb. I would rank him like this right now. And if I had the first pick and wanted to go receiver, Chase is the guy. But if I had the second pick in many drafts, CeeDee Lamb is my guy. Jefferson, people are a little down on him, I think, because of JJ McCarthy, but he is a top 5 guy, like regardless of who's playing quarterback. You can't go wrong with any of these tiers, but obviously, especially at the top of the draft in tier 1. Tier 2 and tier 3, I would not argue if you had these 6 guys in any order. I have a little bit of a tier break here, but I would not fight you if you had Amon-Ra as the 4th guy overall. For me, it's Neighbors and Nico Collins in tier 2. Neighbors is talent-wise the guy that I think is in the Chase Jefferson conversation in terms of obviously LSU, in terms of just talent that is undeniable, that is going to succeed no matter the situation. He's that elite, and I think he's going to be in that conversation for the next 7 years. Obviously, what he did last year with poor quarterback play as a rookie is phenomenal, and players, especially wide receivers, that perform like that in their first year almost always improve in year 2. And if Neighbors is going to improve, and we'll talk about BTJ in a second, similarly, we're looking at potentially a historic wide receiver season. And I like Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart better than whatever crap they had last year. Nico Collins, before he got hurt last year, was wide receiver 2 overall, I believe. Just has it all. I think CJ Stroud regressed a little bit last year, but maybe that was because Nico was out for 8 weeks in the middle of the season. He can do it at all levels of the field, and he's a dominant athlete. He's huge. He's clearly the alpha in that wide receiver room. You can't go wrong with Nico Collins in the middle of the first round. Tier 3, Brian Thomas Jr., year 2, Puka, Amon-Ra, Drake London. And I guess we are going to talk about all these guys because they're just so good and so dominant. If you pick at the back half of the first round, the back half of your round draft this year, and you can grab 2 of these guys, if you pick 10th and you go Neighbors, Nakua, I mean, you are scary no matter what else you do for the rest of the draft. Brian Thomas Jr., back half of the season, was a top 5 wide receiver with Mac Jones throwing him the ball. He's now got Trevor Lawrence. He's now got Liam Cohen. And like I said, year 1 to year 2 is almost always a leap, especially for the elite guys. And now he has Travis Hunter opposite him to take away some coverage. Look out. Potential wide receiver overall number 1 season. Puka Nakua, I love him. Every time he's on the field, I want him on my team. He's just a target hog and always produces. Came out of nowhere with 100 catches in his rookie season and didn't slow down in year 2. Gets a little banged up. If you're worried about Stafford, okay, I get it. If you're worried about Vontae Adams taking more targets away, but he had Kupp opposite last year, like I'm not worried about Nakua, and he's sliding a little bit away from this pack, and that to me says value. Amon-Ra, not sexy anymore, but incredible value, incredible consistency, good offense, good quarterback, cannot go wrong. And Drake London, the last 3 games of the season, when Penix came in and took over as the QB, London had 3 ridiculous games ending with like a 17 target game with 2 touchdowns and 13 catches, something ridiculous. He's got a shot to lead the NFL in targets, and we love opportunities. Tier 4, 5, 6, like I said, between tiers 4 and tier 8, I believe, we'll look in a minute, there's just so much talent. I'm just going to talk about all these kind of together because this gets a little flat. You could put A.J. Brown in a tier above. Talent-wise, you certainly can. He just doesn't get enough opportunities in the way they play football. If he were a target monster like the other guys, he would be a top 5 pick. He's that talented still, even though he's not. He might be past his age peak, but I think he's still in his prime. JSN, one of my guys the last 2 years. Last year finally took the leap into where I thought he would be, and I don't think that slows down here. People are nervous about the Seahawks and Sam Darnold, but they had Geno last year. It's not that big of a downgrade. Darnold did play with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and they produced just fine. Seattle wants to run the ball, but I think JSN is going to still see 150 targets, and I think he is that talented of a player. Tier 5, I'm going to start with my major love affair, bias, sort of, this year, and that's the rookie Tet McMillan. You see how ridiculously high I have him here. You don't have to draft him this high, obviously. Most of the names below him are going to be taken before him, but I am huge on Tet McMillan, and why I said bias is, one, my eyes. I'm biased towards my eyes, and when I look at Tet McMillan on tape, he looks like a super duper star. Produced in college, 1,300 years, both the last 1,300 yards the last 2 years with a terrible team around him. When I say bias, what I mean is he's on my dynasty team. I drafted him this year on my dynasty team, so I want him to be amazing, as good as I'm saying he's going to be. So keep that in mind, but I think he's special, and I think that offense is going to emerge and take a step forward, and Bryce Young and Tet are going to be a solid duo to be heard from here. Tyreek Hill. This all comes down to your risk tolerance, similar to as we talked about McCaffrey in the RB episode. We're 2 years ago right now. We're 2 years removed from Tyreek going second overall in the whole freaking league. And last year, I think he was still wide receiver 18 with basically torn ligament in his wrist, if that's what the injury was, if I'm remembering correctly. And I don't even know who throwing him the ball, not Tua. So there's a ridiculous upside case for taking Tyreek Hill in the end of the 3rd round or even in the middle of the 4th round right now. I don't think his speed, he's probably still one of the faster wide receivers in the league. He's obviously somewhat of a dick, and you don't know what you're going to get mentally and behaviorally from him. Like I said, this all comes down to risk tolerance. If you tell me 6 months from now that Tyreek Hill is a top 5 wide receiver, I won't be surprised. If you told me he is on another team and played 7 games, that wouldn't surprise me either. So it's up to you how you like to play your risk with these guys. Tier 6. Let's look over here. Pickens, Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, Jameson Williams, Terry McLaurin. Again, back to my original statement. All these guys could play for me. If I'll flip my strategy in reverse here. If you are a running back guy and want to go heavy running back, or you love Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, and your first 3 picks are Bijan, McBride, and Chase Brown, let's say, and you start drafting wide receivers in round 4, and your wide receiver room looks like George Pickens, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, and somebody in the next tier, it's not bad. I can't argue with that. I personally like to get one at least of that top 9 group, those super duper alpha guys, but there's a lot of quality here this year. It goes deep. So there's a bunch of different ways you can approach your draft structurally. In this tier, George Pickens at the top here, I love his setup. I think the Cowboys, I like Dak Prescott. Obviously, I love CD. I think that they're going to throw the ball a ton. And I think Dak is an accurate, quality quarterback, way better than George Pickens has ever had. Pickens, all the way back in his Georgia days, known as an incredibly talented player, somewhat of a head case, somewhat of malcontent potentially, but the talent has not gone away. He's playing opposite a target hog and a super duper star in CeeDee Lamb. I just think there's a ton of opportunity for Pickens to put up 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns and be a high end wide receiver too. Cortland Sutton. I think Denver's going to score a lot of points, similar to Dallas. And while they have a bunch of pieces around, Bo Nix coming into his second year, you assume there's going to be some improvement. You like a Sean Payton offense. Even though there's Engram, even though the young guys, Pat Bryant, Marvin Mims, supposedly having a great camp, even Troy Franklin, Sutton is an alpha. Size-wise, speed-wise, production-wise. If you look back last year and the year before, he's got the numbers, the peripherals. He's a dude. And like you can argue that he should be even separated from this group a little bit. I don't like him talent-wise as much as the main guys. That's why he's where I draft him. But if you give me Sutton as my wide receiver 2 in round 5 or even 6, I'm a happy guy. Tier 7, I don't know what happened there. I didn't mean to do that. So let's move Ridley over here. Look at that real-time technical work here by your guy. Anyway, tier 7. Ridley, Worthy, Ibuka, Rice, Waddle, Hunter, Olave, Addison, Flowers. And like, I love this tier. I love it. Like, you give me, as I'm sitting here thinking about my strategy in real time, you give me Malik Neighbors in the first, and then maybe I go a Lamar Jackson and a Brock and a Trey McBride and even a Ken Walker, and then rounds 5 through 8, I'm going Ridley and Travis Hunter and Jordan Addison taking the suspension discount. That's a pretty quality wide receiver room. Again, compounding the narrative of the depth at this position and how you can play this a bunch of different ways. Ridley, I think I like the Tennessee offense to take a step forward. I think he's clearly the guy, and we could be looking at 130, 140 targets by a quality quarterback. Last year he had Levis throwing him the ball, who is not good at football. Xavier Worthy, I think he's underrated. He's in most situations, as we talked about with Neighbors and BTJ, when a year 1 wide receiver with great draft capital and even throw in an incredible quarterback has the back half of year 1 that Worthy had, going into year 2, they're usually a first or second round pick, right? That's why we see Neighbors and Johnson, Brian Thomas rather, where we see them. Worthy is like, I don't think he's as good as those guys, but on paper, if you just put their numbers up of how these guys finished the year and where they were drafted, I think Worthy on a blank, without name recognition attached to it, would be a round 2 receiver that you can now get in round 5. That seems like incredible value to me. I don't want to go through everyone here, but I have to talk about this third guy here, Emeka Ibuka. He is the darling of the preseason in the wide receiver world. I have nothing negative to say here. In my drafts, I've been reaching to get him. I believe he is absolutely the real deal. When he was drafted, I, like many others, was confused about, they already have 3 quality receivers in a good offense. Why do they need another receiver? Well, they probably A, knew something about Godwin, B, maybe not as in love with Jalen McMillan as the public might think after a rookie season where he popped with some unsustainable touchdown production. And this guy was the best guy on their board. So between all of that, what he did in Ohio State and everything that everyone is saying about him, like you don't hear one negative about this guy. I think he's a star in the making, and I'm willing to bet that happens way sooner rather than later, like week 1. Like I think he comes out of the gate as a starter in place of a hurt Godwin and a hurt McMillan, and never comes off the field for his career. Like, I think that's what we're looking at here. And if you tell me that next year we're drafting Ibuka in at the 2-3 turn, I'm very behind that narrative. Quickly, Olave, a wide receiver one playing in a dome on a team that's going to be down. Someone who is a target hog when on the field, a great pedigree that you can get in round 7 or 8. I mean, that whether you think the Saints are going to be a complete train wreck, you're worried about the concussions, sure, I get it, but that's a bet that I'm willing to make every single time, and that's what all these picks are. You're making bets on what you think the upside of a player can be, and I'm always looking for upside cases, especially guys that I think can finish in the top 15 at their position that I can draft as the 25th or 35th guy off the board. Addison, give me the suspension discount all day long. I'll figure it out for the first 3 weeks. Tier 8, Adunze, Judy, Diggs, Reed, Downs, Myers, Pearsall. Again, I don't want to keep repeating myself, so I won't even say it. I like this tier 2 a lot. Give me Adunze in year 2 with the new offense with Ben Johnson emerging in year 2, as rookies tend to do in that jump. Judy crushed it the back half of the year. Diggs, he's not over the hill yet. A route runner like him with an emerging offense with Drake May, I think Diggs catches 100 balls. It's not sexy, but it's quality in round 6, 7. Josh Downs, every time he's on the field, produces at a high level. Don't sleep on him in round 9, 10, depending on your league. Pearsall, people are loving him coming into year 2. Remember, he started last season after being shot with a gun. Shot. So he didn't get to really get his ground until, let's say, midway through the year. And then at the end of the year, when other guys were hurt, like Ayuk, he stepped up and played well. He could be the guy, especially till Ayuk comes back in the San Francisco offense. Tier 9, an injured Godwin, Debo, Jawan Jennings, Matthew Golden. Let's take Golden here, the rookie, high draft capital, a really good quarterback, and a wide receiver room, especially with Jaden Reed, a little banged up now. And camp reviews are been really high. Golden could be the wide receiver 1 as a fast speed demon rookie on a good passing offense day 1. Don't sleep on him. And here, tiers 10, 11, 12, this is, I think there's, a clear cutoff between the tiers above and where we go here. However, tier 10, there's some guys that can absolutely play for me and even start for me if I go running back heavy or take a onesie position early. Ayuk, you're not getting him until probably week 6 or 7. So again, risk tolerance. Does your league have an IR spot that you can kind of stash him on? Keon Coleman, year 2 guy on a great offense. When healthy at the beginning of last year, put up some numbers. I don't think he's anywhere near the talent of some of the other year 1 guys last year, like Worthy or Adunze or obviously Neighbors or BTJ, but there's no alpha in Buffalo. Year 1 to year 2, a good physical profile, good draft capital. The makings of a Keon Coleman wide receiver emergence, they're there. And again, comes back to placing that bet. If I need a receiver, a wide receiver 4 or 5 in round 10, and he's staring me in the face, I'll take that gamble. Michael Pittman Jr., I think, is underrated right now, plain and simple. Tier 11, Cedric Tillman, somebody I'm targeting late in draft as a bench guy that I want to give a tryout to, because when he played at, in like the 3-quarter mark last year for a month, he was a stud. And he profiles like a stud from college, from physically. He's like a dominant looking player out there. Who knows what the Browns are going to do, but he's a guy I'm willing to give a tryout to. Marvin Mims, we mentioned quickly when talking about Cortland Sutton. Mims allegedly has taken hold of the wide receiver 2 spot. And we've seen historically, not that there's much history with Marvin Mims, but when he's on the field, things happen. He's a game breaker. So if he's going to be on the field, he's going to run 80% of the routes. There's some upside with Marvin Mims. Kristen Kirk, boring but effective. Don't sleep on boring but effective guys in PPR leagues that are going to be on the field and know how to run routes and get open. They're going to catch passes. You tell me Christian Kirk catches 80 balls for 1,000 yards and is a solid wide receiver 3 every single week? I believe it. Tier 12, nothing exciting here for me. Jaden Higgins, the rookie, obviously a little bit sexy because rookies are sexy, and he's got a big body and he's got a a clear path to being on 3 wide receiver sets next to Nico and Kirk. But I'm probably not drafting much from this tier. And then, when you get down to the bottom here, it's not exciting. It's who do you like, right? It's who do you want to take a chance on at the end of your draft? For me, some names that pop out here: Jalen Coker, especially with the trade of Adam Thielen; Roman Wilson in PPR leagues. I don't think anyone is looking at Dante Thornton Jr. in Vegas, a specimen and supposedly going to start at the X spot and turning heads in camp. Guy I'll take a chance on. One guy I do want to talk about here, and this is who I'm taking at the end of every best ball draft I've done this summer, and that's Malik Washington. Incredibly tight concentration of targets in Miami, and Tyreek Hill is one of those guys. So there's opportunity. That's what I'm saying. In an efficient offense. When Tua is out there, he is incredibly accurate. Malik Washington, when he's played in the preseason, has been targeted. 4 catches for 50 yards on like 5 plays. Basically, he's going to a second year. He's talented, and I think he's the clear wide receiver 3. They only have Achane out of the backfield, really, with Ollie Gordon being kind of the battering ram and Jalen Wright kind of sucking. I just think there's opportunity, and I think there's talent, and I think it's a good offense. And I think if Tyreek Hill, something happens there, if Waddle gets hurt, which tends to happen sometimes, there's room for Malik Washington. And you know what? Since I end all my drafts there with Malik at the end, we're going to end this there too. Hope this was helpful. And again, if you want a copy of these tiers, hit me up and I will send them to you. And if you want to fight me about any of these rankings or tiers, you know where to find me.